pessoal, tudo bem com vocês? Eu espero e desejo que sim, que esteja tudo ótimo. Eu sou a Tati Súria, do canal Súria Despertando a Consciência. E assim nós vamos acessando dimensões superiores de consciência aqui e agora, encarnados. Hoje eu vim falar com vocês sobre um tema muito top, muito legal. Eu senti vontade de falar sobre isso devido a uma conversa com uma amiga minha, a Yara, que ela é um ser aviário. E a gente conversando, tirando algumas dúvidas, eu fui falando para ela como eu conheci esses seres. E achei legal fazer um vídeo sobre isso, que pode interessar muita gente que não conhece, que tem interesse em conhecer e vai descobrindo um mundo novo muito legal. Então, vamos lá. Então, gente, aconteceu o seguinte, há mais ou menos 3 ou 4 anos atrás, em uma das minhas meditações, que eu estava fazendo uma conexão com Yudiel, né, que é um ser do comando Santa Esmeralda. Estava tendo aulas, vamos dizer assim, com ele nos planos internos, né, no astral, conhecendo mais sobre Astar Sheran e tudo mais, aquilo. Quando eu percebi que eu estava tendo contato em um dado momento com um ser, assim, de corpo parecido com o humano, porém ele tinha uma cor azulada, aquele topetinho, e parecia um rosto de uma ave. Então chegou um dado momento que eu saí do Yudiel e comecei a ter um contato com esse outro ser. Aí eu fui perguntar para pessoas que eu conhecia o que seria aquilo, quem, se sabia o que era. Aí o seu Ayrton, que é um guru nosso muito top, ele falou o seguinte, ele falou, nossa, parabéns, hein, os seres Blue Avians estão entrando em contato com você. Eu falei, nossa, o que será isso, né? Daí eu comecei a me atentar mais. Aí chegou numa noite dessas em meditação, tal. Esse ser me levou para um local no oceano, saindo assim, vamos dizer, no litoral de São Paulo, e foi lá pro fundão, bem lá no meião. Ele sempre telepaticamente, claro, tal, ele me pediu para eu mergulhar lá pro fundo. E assim a gente entrou no fundo desse oceano, foi para as profundezas, até ficar tudo preto, assim, não via nada. Chegou bem lá no fundão, tinha umas rochas, eu sentia, mas era tudo muito escuro. E tinha um portal, uma entrada para um mundo subterrâneo ali. Foi aberto aquele portal e não entrava aquela água lá. Eu me atentei, até reparei muito nisso. Então, né, era uma coisa bem etérica. Eu peguei e quando abriu aquele portalzinho, uma coisa pequena numa rocha assim, era muita luz, muito claro. Aí eu peguei, entrei, sempre guiada por ele, e chegando lá, era uma cidade maravilhosa, tudo claro, assim como a luz do sol, nada a ver com o que estava ali antes no oceano. Tinha guardiões, tinha vários detalhes antes, que eu até vou me esquecendo, mas conforme eu lembro eu vou falando. Então a gente foi indo pela beirada do lado direito, e eu fui vendo, ele foi explicando, tem coisas que eu lembrava, tem coisas que eu não lembro do que ele disse. Enfim, chegamos numa parte que a gente foi conhecer essa cidade. Ele me mostrou a saída, e era por cima, não era por onde a gente veio. E falou, vamos, né? Tipo assim, a gente foi. Quando a gente saiu, era através de um vulcão. A gente estava lá embaixo do vulcão, um vulcão inativo, onde fica uma cidade etérica nos mundos intraterrenos. Então ele foi, me explicou, me ensinou como chegava. Estava começando minha jornada de contato com os intraterrenos. Eu não sabia nada sobre isso, nem que existiam esses tipos de seres. Os intraterrenos eu já fazia ideia, mas também nunca tive contato antes. O que aconteceu? Eu peguei e fui pesquisar, né? Com as informações que eu tinha, que o senhor Ayrton me passou, coisa e tal. E eu cheguei no Corey Good e vi uma entrevista dele, que aí eu fiquei de boca aberta. Ele falando que a experiência dele foi basicamente a mesma coisa, de ir lá através do oceano, no ponto X lá, ele passa as informações perfeitamente exatas, corretas. Aí eu botei bastante fé nele a partir daí, porque eu tive a experiência primeiro e depois eu fui saber que existia aquilo, que a experiência dele tipo foi igualzinha a minha praticamente, né? Cada um com as suas diretrizes. Então foi algo muito interessante, foi meu primeiro contato com os seres avians, Blue Avians, né? Os aviários, e também com os intraterrenos. A partir daí, aí comecei a ter muitos contatos, muitas visitas através de outros mestres e outros guias. Fui aprendendo, fazendo curas em mim mesma, em Shambhala, em outros locais, até que eu fiquei apta a trabalhar com os intraterrenos em telos, fazer as iniciações no pessoal, e por aí recebe algumas condecorações de Buda. Tem muita coisa fantástica. Então, ninguém precisa acreditar em mim, mas quem me conhece vai saber que o negócio é verídico. E ali, né, como muitos já sabem, alguns não, no centro da Terra está o portal de arremesso para o Sol, para nossa libertação daqui da Terra. Então, tem muitos mistérios aí, muitas coisas que, né, que as pessoas não sabem ainda, não porque é segredo, mas porque é inacessível e o entendimento, assim, foge ao entendimento humano. Mas é muita coisa legal, verídica, que vocês devem estudar e principalmente vocês devem praticar, pedir para ter contato com os seres, para ter aula nas escolas astrais, né? E encontrem também mestres, auxiliadores, né? Mentores, não mestres, porque cada um é seu próprio mestre, mas até atingir um determinado nível de consciência, tem muita gente legal, muita gente boa por aqui que pode ajudar, pode mostrar o caminho, porque já percorreu bastante, né? Tomar aquele cuidado para não pegar charlatão, pessoa que só quer ganhar dinheiro, que nem entende nada e tá enganando os outros, coisa e tal. Mas, né, siga sua intuição o máximo e vai atrás, faça a sua reforma íntima, que é o essencial, o estudo e a prática. Tem que ter os dois bem alinhadinhos, porque se nós não nos autoconhecemos, nós não despertamos a consciência de jeito nenhum. Porque tudo está dentro de nós. Nós somos os fractais da fonte criadora que veio nos autoconhecer. Fomos baixando as densidades até chegar nessa. E agora estamos em ascenso. Estamos religando, voltando à nossa fonte primordial. E não precisa seguir essa mecânica também do planeta. A gente pode antecipar. Então, nosso trabalho de despertar essa iluminação é realmente se lembrar de quem você realmente é e que todos somos um. Nós somos o próprio Deus, entre aspas, a fonte criadora em ação, em autoconhecimento aqui na densidade. Então, muito importante trabalhar sobre si mesmo, participar de grupos, de estudo e fazer práticas constantes, né? Se você também quiser, a gente tem um grupo gratuito através do WhatsApp, Telegram. Estamos nesse trâmite porque muitas pessoas não participam do Telegram ativamente, né? No WhatsApp é muito mais fluido o grupo. Então, no WhatsApp, se quiser me chamar para participar do grupo, é o DDD 19 98762 9913. A gente adiciona no grupo, participa das dinâmicas, pode conversar comigo no particular, com os outros voluntários que tem lá que também ajudam. A gente faz visitas nas naves de cura, em outras naves do comando Santa Esmeralda e outros comandos, conforme a possibilidade, tá? Uma vez por mês a gente faz as quartas-feiras de cura para enviar energia de cura quântica para as pessoas que quiserem. A gente faz muita coisa legal, tá? Então, contatem lá. Gratidão por assistirem. Se estiverem gostando, sempre deixem seu like para incentivar. Se inscrevam no canal e compartilhem com os amigos. Gratidão, pessoal. Até a próxima e namastê.
E na transmissão de hoje, vamos falar um pouco sobre os Blue Yavians. Os Blue Yavians estão intimamente ligados ao nosso avanço espiritual. As mensagens e orientações de luz trazidas por estes seres já foram trazidas anteriormente, porém foram distorcidas. Eles retornaram recentemente ao nosso sistema solar para nos ajudar em nosso processo de ascensão. Suas naves são como esferas do tamanho de planetas. Eles são seres de dimensões superiores, mais sutis que a maioria das raças que estão em contato com a humanidade. Eles habitam da sexta à 12ª dimensão. E um dos aspectos mais marcantes desses seres são suas habilidades extradimensionais. Sua consciência se desenvolveu a partir de sua perspectiva visionária e capacidade de se mover através do pensamento. Eles foram capazes de aprender a habilidade de se teletransportar, e isto eventualmente os levou a uma expansão e integração de suas próprias espécies em outros orbes. Os Blue Yavians estão intimamente ligados à criação da espécie humana e foram uma das primeiras espécies existentes no universo, uma das civilizações mais evoluídas também. Embora esses seres se assemelhem fisicamente com pássaros, é apenas um aspecto de sua natureza dimensional, escolhido para se materializar no espaço físico. As aves que habitam o nosso planeta Terra também são um presente destes seres, que além de ajudar na polinização que permite a fertilização das flores e a produção de sementes, eles também ajudam a regular a atmosfera eletromagnética da Terra. Os Blue Yavians, junto com outras raças e sementes estelares encarnadas aqui no planeta Terra, estão trabalhando pelo bem da humanidade e contra os draconianos e outras raças que há muito tempo dominam a Terra. As sementes das estrelas Blue Yavians vieram originalmente de outro universo, embora já houvessem espécies aviárias altamente evoluídas que entraram neste universo há bilhões de anos. Eventualmente, muitos desenvolveram uma consciência ampliada devido à sua capacidade de ver o cenário como um todo. Isso expandiu o seu alcance e hoje eles se encontram habitando novos orbes. As sementes estelares Blue Yavians são visionárias, precognitivas, têm a habilidade de se teletransportar, são expansivas, amantes da liberdade, têm uma inteligência aguçada e visão multidimensional, são observadores natos, eficientes e estão sempre prontos para ajudar. Devido a enxergarem ângulos que quase ninguém pode ver, podem elevar quaisquer situações e levá-las a novos níveis de pensamento, aumentando facilmente as vibrações das pessoas com as quais entram em contato. São pensadores livres e antenas de comunicação extradimensional, não limitadas pelos limites da consciência dos grupos aos quais fazem parte. Os Blue Yavins podem estar em muitos lugares ao mesmo tempo e geralmente enviam apenas uma forma energética de si mesmos ao universo para fazer contato com outras sementes encarnadas aqui no plano físico e também com outras raças cósmicas. A necessidade básica de todo Blue Yavin, seja em forma original ou encarnado em forma humana, é a liberdade. Não tente confinar um Blue Yavin consciente. Eles honram todas as formas de expressão de vida e esperam que a sua liberdade seja respeitada e honrada. Um Blue Yavin pode literalmente adoecer e até mesmo entrar em depressão se sentir aprisionado. Uma das características das sementes Blue Yavins é gostar de se aventurar, conhecer lugares novos, saltar de paraquedas, porque isto traz a sensação de liberdade para eles. Também são muito regrados em relação à hora de dormir e acordar, porque têm o funcionamento do seu relógio biológico bem desenvolvido. Blue Yavins encarnaram nas civilizações da Terra para ajudar a iluminar as novas perspectivas do que é ser um humano. Existem atualmente centenas de milhares de almas Blue Yavins encarnadas na Terra, e a principal característica dessas pessoas é a necessidade de quebrar gaiolas. Essas pessoas sempre irão procurar maneiras criativas de sair das situações limitantes e se libertar dos sistemas de crenças. Eles podem ser encontrados em qualquer área de atuação, mas geralmente sentem afinidade por profissões que requerem um alto nível de intelecto e conhecimento. Atenção aos mínimos detalhes. Sementes Blue Yavins podem ser excelentes investigadores ou espiões. Em sua maioria, são inventores, cientistas, professores, filósofos e inovadores em todas as áreas. Às vezes, eles perseguem os sonhos mais impossíveis e podem parecer um pouco utópicos para a maioria das pessoas, mas a verdade é que eles estão sempre à frente do seu tempo.
Welcome to the world of the shocking, the bizarre, the seemingly unbelievable, cosmic disclosure. I'm your host, David Wilcock. We're interviewing Corey Goode, the insider's insider, a man who has as much knowledge crammed into his brain as all the other insiders I've met put together. Truly a fascinating conversation that we're having. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We were talking about Lieutenant Colonel Gonzalez, who is a mysterious figure that has aroused a great deal of curiosity on the internet. Some people are saying that he's about to come forward. Is that true?
No, he is. There's no plan for him to be coming forward anytime.
Okay, people on the internet are thinking, well, we just want to see another guy who knows what Corey knows. Why is it a bad idea for Gonzalez to come forward?
He has a cover life here on Earth. He isn't down here very often. If he was to expose himself at this point, it would be very dangerous for him and the operation. He doesn't have any children or family, and some would think that it would be, I guess, safer for him to come forward than me with having a family and children. And I agree to a certain point.
So the Blue Avians obviously have been assisting Solar Warden in trying to break out cosmic disclosure for humanity. What's the history of that? What's the history of them contacting you? Because I certainly remember that very amazing day, February 27th, 2015, when you told me in a Skype text that the Blue Avians had asked for you by name from the Space Program Alliance. So what's the history here?
As you remember, I was telling you that I was in contact with a being that I wouldn't go into details about. I wouldn't even describe to you.
And I respected you for that, but it was also something that made me extremely curious that with all of the really outrageous stuff you were telling me, why is he holding back on this? About all I knew was that they were blue, and that was it. I think that's about the only thing you ever said, and that it had something to do with your family and your kids.
Right. And that much I still can't talk about.
Right.
But
when did this contact happen with you?
It goes back 4 years.
Okay, so 4 years before 2015 would be 2011, thereabouts. Okay.
And it turns out that Lieutenant Colonel Gonzalez has been in contact with them for about the exact same time frame.
So around 2011 as well.
Mm-hmm. And he had been in a liaison role between the Blue Avians and the Solar Warden, and the SSP breakaway faction that included Solar Warden.
Okay.
It's not just Solar Warden.
It's not just Solar Warden.
Right. A lot of people have been putting out that it was just Solar Warden. It's a kind of a conglomerate of defectors from the different space programs.
Right.
And he had been presenting information from the Blue Avians for some time. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they give him my name and information, and he comes to the SSP Council, Alliance Council, and says, the Blue Avians have chosen this guy to be their delegate. And they were not happy at all about it. They wanted Gonzalez to be the delegate.
What would this, without getting into any incriminating detail, what would this cover life be like? Does he have a house? Does he have a car?
Yes. Lives in a house in a rural area.
So he would tell if he meets somebody that he has a particular job, and there's a whole cover story worked out where that job does exist and he could go there?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I'm very reticent to say anything more.
Oh, no, absolutely. There's just been this current on the internet of people thinking he's about to join us on a radio show or something, and we need to specify it. That's not about to happen. So you're saying the Avians contacted you and him in 2011. Was this before the new influx of 100 or so visible spheres of the size of the Moon, Neptune, and Jupiter? Was it around the same time? Was it a little bit before?
It was occurring before, and it was during the influx.
Okay. So it kind of seems as if there's a major push being made, and that one of the initiatives was to move the spheres in, and another initiative was to grab these delegates, starting with Gonzalez, and then once you were apparently ready for this job, that then you were also invited in.
Right. I was being prepared, but I had no idea I was being prepared or what I was being prepared for. I was still coming to terms with a lot of my past, of what I had been involved in, and when I had gotten to the point where I had come to terms with it, I was dealing with the Blue Avians with some of that information.
So when this contact first happened in your case in 2011, did you actually see them like the Android Jones illustration that we have? Were you seeing these beings, or was it like a blue sphere? What were you actually experiencing?
They first introduced themselves to people in dreams, in a very lucid dream. And then they appear to you physically after they have prepared you through dreams.
Which is exactly what they say in the Law of One is the same contact protocol.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, they say in the Law of One that they discontinued most physical contacts because the people that were getting them would get a big ego and would be worshipped by others as some sort of messianic figure. And one of the things about your story that has really fascinated me is that prime directive sort of free will clampdown on in-person contacts seems to have been lifted because of the need of the moment, because we need to get jump-started into this golden age and we need some help getting there.
And after every meeting, I'm heavily warned about ego, my own ego, and this information becoming cultish or a religion, which it's not supposed to be by any means.
Let's go back to that moment again and tell us, what did it start with? You said it started with dreams. At what point were you aware that you were in contact with what you're now calling blue avians?
I was very aware in the dreams, but it wasn't...
Did they look the same as the illustration in these dreams?
Pretty much. The illustration that is out is not perfect yet. But yes, that's the way they appeared in the dreams.
In the dreams, okay.
And in person, when they finally did appear.
Dreams a lot of times will have very odd, metaphorical, symbolic, impossible things going on. You'll look over here and then you look away and then it's changing. So did these dreams seem to have that type of symbolic nature? Or
No.
was it more like a lucid contact?
It was very lucid, very real, very tangible. It was different than any type of dream that I had had before.
So we're getting lots and lots of people on the internet who are trying to say that they've jumped right into this storyline with you, that they're having the same contact that you're having, and they're trying to portray themselves as authority figures and act as if their information should be considered equally. What is the way in which most people are being contacted? Because it seems like a lot of these are fraudulent. They don't really line up with what you're hearing. What is the way that most people are being contacted? What is a type of experience that might occur?
Most people are being contacted having experiences with the blue orbs, which is, the blue orbs are actually the highest density of the sphere being alliance. So, I mean, they're higher density than the blue avians, but everyone seems to have locked on to the blue avian. There's something romantic about it. People have locked on to it. But most people are having experiences with the blue spheres.
What would that involve? What's actually happening?
Usually a blue sphere or spheres appear to people and zip around or stop in front of them and pulse. And people receive either a message they remembered consciously, or they just think they just saw a very cool thing and don't understand that they received a message subconsciously, or their higher self received a message. And they're receiving a message from these higher density beings for future reasons.
Well, this is really mind-blowing, and we've talked about this privately, but I want to get this on camera. It is going to involve a little bit of self-disclosure and a little monologue from me, but it's very important. I had read The Law of One and the Seth books. Both Carla Ruckert and Jane Roberts, the channels of two of the best channels in modern times, in my opinion, both had these blue orb visitations, very clearly delineated in the books. I was so aware of it that I was frustrated and said, why haven't they done that with me? Because one of the things it says in the Law of One is that they will try to get to you telepathically. They don't want to have to do an in-person contact if they can avoid it. If they can get you involved like they did with me telepathically, that's better. So one day I'm in North Carolina visiting a friend. I'm meditating in a field. I see a UFO. First time I'd ever seen one. Goes behind a cloud. The cloud goes away. It's gone. But because I'm meditating, I'm just like, okay, well, now I've seen a UFO. Big deal. The only other thing I want, and I said this as like a prayer, the only other thing that I wish would happen that hasn't happened is I want a orb of light to appear in my room and give me an intelligent message. Just like what happened to Carla and what happened to Jane Roberts. Then I call my father a couple days later, and it turns out that my brother was on the other line at the same time. And he patches us both in together. I said, Dad, you realize this is synchronicity, right? He's like, oh. Then my brother says, after I talk about my UFO sighting, he said, well, that's funny. Something weird happened to me too. I said, what's that? He said, this orb of light appeared in my room and gave me an intelligent message. And in his case, he was meditating, and his head actually dropped back, and then he saw this orb appear near the ceiling, and it spread out to about 4 or 5 feet wide, and it was like a vortex tunnel. It was an actual stargate in his ceiling, pulsing, and we have a whole article on my website from 2001 called David's Brother Receives In-Person ET Contact. And it gave him a message, and it said, the ascension that your brother is writing about will not happen all at once. It will be a series of increasingly uplifting, inspirational experiences. You have had the first of these experiences, which was mind-blowing. So how do you think, how did that strike you when I told you that my brother had this experience back in 2001? It was already in print on my website.
I had no idea, but there are many, many tens and now hundreds of thousands of people that are having these experiences right now.
Has Gonzalez had this type of thing too? Is that part of how it worked for him?
Yes.
Okay. What is Gonzalez's role at this point? What's the difference between how he got contacted and how you got contacted? He was in the space program when this happened.
The contacts happened exactly the same way. And he has been named a secret space program delegate. He's a delegate between the secret space program and the Blue Avians. I have been named a delegate between the Blue Avians and the Secret Space Program Alliance and all of the other groups they want to meet with, but will not meet with one-on-one. And I have been put in the situation to meet in all these different Federation Council meetings, and he has accompanied me to several of these.
Have there been trips that you've taken up into space that, since this all started, that did not involve Gonzalez, where you never saw him?
Yes, but most recently he's been very much a part of them. And when I was out here doing the last shoot at Gaiam, there were 2 extremely important meetings that that were time sensitive, that he had to stand in, and one was with the Draco Federation Alliance, and that was a very traumatic meeting for him. But the second meeting was much more awe-inspiring and pleasant for him. And this was with the Super Federation of 40 main groups of ETs that are involved in this 22 different genetic and other experiments going on with humanity. And there were 20 other, making 60 groups that are overall involved in this grand experiment.
And this is some of your earliest experiences in space, right? Was being a part of this. So
Right.
just to briefly recap, what did you originally do when you went to these Super Federation conferences? How old were you, and what was your job?
I was very young. I was barely in my pre-teenage years, and I was in a intuitive empath role, which now each of us, when we arrive, we have 3 intuitive empaths with us. That intuitive empaths are there to detect deception or danger. And that's what I did. But now when Gonzalez or I go to these meetings, we have that type of support for us.
Were the beings in the Super Federation aware that you were there to detect deception?
Yes, they all have this type of this type of role.
Okay.
I've described the large shuttle vessel that is modular. It can be changed for any type of mission. It's about 50, 60 feet long. And this vessel took him and his support team out to an area that's around the gas giants, usually in between around Jupiter and Saturn. And this is a area that you would not be able to see with a telescope. It's inside a temporal distortion bubble. And you enter in this distortion and you exit in the exact same place you enter from.
Just like the fairy ring.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you enter in, it is completely black. You don't see any stars, you don't see the sun, you don't see any planets. Completely black.
The sun, nothing is
Nothing.
visible at all.
Yeah. All you see is the station
Huh.
that the council meetings take place at. And
What about other people's ships?
you'll see other ships going to the docking, the dual docking arms. So his vessel docks, him and his crew get off, and they, this is the first time that he had been actually acknowledged, because he had been there basically in a support role before with me, and they had only acknowledged me because I was there as the delegate.
Can you just help us out here? The visual, like this is a movie now. What are we seeing? Is it like a whole city? Is it a structure that's just big enough to hold the council, or could there be a lot of other stuff going on in it?
Yeah, it's an extremely advanced space station.
Okay.
And as he exited the ship and started walking down the passageways towards the main hall, the main Federation Council hall, he was walking, and people were acknowledging him for the first time. And there's a main foyer area to where people meet and greet before they walk into the main hall. And when you walk into the main hall, where everyone sits is kind of like a horseshoe shape, and there's a main chair that's elevated, and then 3 chairs lowered, and there's a rail that goes around.
So there's one horseshoe for each of these 40 groups?
For each delegation. And then the delegate sits in the chair, and then they have one advisor that usually stands to their back left. In this case, the room was extremely crowded. They knew that there was a big announcement going to be made. So it was like standing room only. They had extra delegation chairs for, the full 60 group was there. And then they had seating and standing room area for a whole bunch of others. He said that he was very excited to sit in this chair because before, when he had arrived, when I sat in the chair, it had operated like a universal translator to this universal strange ET language that was very monotone and no one else heard or understood. And so he sat in the chair, expected some sort of weird sensation, but nothing. But he sat in the chair. And a being came up and made the announcements. There was one of the beings that we're very familiar with, that pumpkin kind of colored skin, large blue eyes, has a ridge that goes from like ear to ear, very tall, that wears like kind of like a monk's type of robe. And introduced him, announced for him to come to the front. And he went to the front and made an announcement that many were hoping to hear, that the inner barrier around the earth was going to be relaxed, so that many of the ETs that were trapped on earth, that were benevolent, that were here studying our oceans, studying our jungles, could care less about humanity. We're just here to study our ecosystem, that were having a lot of problems being stuck here for so long, being stuck on Earth.
They were running out of supplies, or?
They're having all sorts of problems. They could then rejoin their support teams that were waiting for them outside the Earth's orbit far away. And this the IEs all said when this announcement was made, there was a huge relief felt in the room. So he made the announcement that they were going to go back to the old style of grid patrols and kind of like an air traffic control of allowing people to come and go. And then he went back and sat in his chair. And then the typical thing that happened when I was at the meetings, each of the 40 groups went to the front and did like a real short 2-minute synopsis of how they have contributed to humanity and the grand experiment and why they are so great, why they've done, what wonderful things they've done. And then they went back and sat in their chair, one after another. And then afterwards, they returned to their shuttle and returned back to debrief.
What is it that these beings think they've done that's so valuable to us?
They think that this grand experiment has been a great contribution to the entire galaxy.
To the galaxy?
Yeah, and beyond. They think the Blue Avians have stated that even though some of these beings are very benevolent in our eyes, that they are still agenda-oriented and therefore a certain percentage service to self.
Are they seeing us as like a master race, like they're trying to mix up the ultimate human?
There's like 22 agendas and some of them are competing. And then also we have the Draco and agenda and all that. So it's very complicated. And
how could we benefit the galaxy, though? I'm not sure I'm getting this.
When you say we, you're talking about this flesh and blood, you know.
Okay.
This is also a spiritual and a much larger experiment than most people realize. Some of these beings are incarnating as us.
That's one of the programs, you're saying?
One of the
Really?
programs. So, you know, some of these people that are starseeds or wanderers, and they are some of these groups here.
Well, Are You a Wanderer? That title is our most popular Wisdom Teachings episode. And we have a questionnaire on there that you can watch that has details on if you have these characteristics, if you can answer these questions, then you're most likely an ET soul.
Yeah. And most of the people that are being contacted by these blue orbs are starseeds, are wanderers. And these cabal groups, I guess for lack of a better word, are very, very interested in starseeds and co-opting them and using them for, I guess, the dark side.
So what is the cabal doing to try to find these wanderers and starseeds? What is their modus operandi?
Well, they have many different ways, but with me, it was using standardized testing in schools. They constantly have people out there that are on the lookout for people with certain signs that show certain abilities, and then they find ways to further test them and see if they meet criteria.
These people don't consciously remember in their physical incarnation that their past life was extraterrestrial.
Right.
They are bound by rules where they have to play human and seem like they're just another ordinary person.
Right. And the blue spheres visiting these people, this is a part of an awakening experience. These people are going through an awakening right now as to what their role is, what their mission is in this lifetime, why they're here.
Is this Super Federation aware of the energetic change that's going on with the sun, these tsunamis of energy you're talking about?
Very much so.
What's their involvement with that? How do they see that?
Many of them had planned on being out of here when this happened, for whatever reason. And that was the purpose of the outer barrier, was to keep everyone that has had anything to do with the tinkering of our biosphere and humanity here, not to let them escape.
Well, there is a line in the Law of One where it says that when this quantum leap takes place, if you're not ready to go to fourth density, that your third density electromagnetic body will fail due to incompatibility. So that line would suggest that if these people are too heavily third density and they're not pure enough to be able to go through this transformation, that it would actually be like a death sentence for them, crispy critters.
Right. And a lot of what these ETs and the blue avians, a lot of what they believe and work off of is what I hear in natural law and in the Law of One. So
What is natural law exactly?
I'm learning a lot of these things. You know, in the beginning, when I first started contacting you and you were telling me, I'd read a little bit about Law of One. I need to learn more about the Law of One. I need to learn.
Blue Avians told you to buy the book, and I saw it in your room.
Yeah, and my wife has been reading
And
it.
it hasn't
I haven't
even
even
been
read
cracked.
it. No, my wife is almost through with reading
well, she's
it.
a very clean reader then, because
Yeah.
it looks brand new.
Yeah, I haven't even read it. So, you know, I'm not doing exactly as well as I should be doing in learning some of these things.
Well, but you've done an amazing job risking your life, coming forward. We're going to have a lot more to talk about. I'm your host, David Wilcock, and I thank you for watching, because you need to know the truth.